Hi everyone, my name is Riley, and today we're talking about H.R. 1, the For the People Act. It's a bill that Democrats introduced to the House of Representatives early in January as their first official piece of legislation. It's a massive reform bill meant to fight corruption and improve voting rights. Unsurprisingly, Republicans are opposed to it. But why would they be opposed to something that's supposed to end corruption and make it easier for Americans to vote? To answer that, we need to look at what H.R. 1 does. It has three major sections: anti-corruption, voting rights, and ethics. First, let's go over the anti-corruption goals. They include a constitutional amendment to end Citizens United. If you remember, Citizens United is the Supreme Court case that essentially decided that corporations can donate as much as they want to political action committees or PACs. The court essentially said that extremely wealthy corporations have free speech, and that restricting their ability to donate would be restricting free speech. However, the problem is corporations aren't people. So this decision essentially gave massive corporations way more sway over our elected officials than the actual people they're supposed to be representing. Repealing Citizens United would mean restoring free speech to the actual human beings who live in this country, because again, corporations aren't people. H.R. 1 would also require super PACs to make all their donors public, and it would make Facebook and Twitter disclose who's purchasing political ads on their sites. It would also create public financing of campaigns, where the government would match small donations up to $200 at a rate of 6-to-1. That means that if you donate $10 to a political campaign, the government would donate $60 to that candidate. That would make it easier for candidates with grassroots support by real people to finance their campaigns, as opposed to the system we have now where politicians have to get support from huge wealthy corporations that then expect favorable legislation in return. The anti-corruption goals of this bill are all intended to make our political process more representative of what real people want, because right now it's clear that that's not happening. Next up, the voting rights section. This would create a system for national automatic voter registration. So if you're eligible to vote, you're automatically registered. That's it. No more arbitrary deadlines before elections. No more needing to remember to register. You just are registered. I actually cannot believe this hasn't been done already, because it's such a common sense thing. People have a right to vote, so they should have a right to be automatically registered to vote. It would make the whole process so much easier. H.R. 1 would also make Election Day a holiday, meaning federal employees would get the day off and other businesses would be encouraged to do the same. Which, again, is a super common sense reform. If you have to work all day on Election Day because you're poor and can't afford to miss work, that's taking away your right to vote. That's only empowering rich people who can afford to take a day off work. Election Day absolutely needs to be a holiday. And H.R. 1 proposes other changes, like prohibiting gerrymandering, prohibiting voter roll purging, and requiring that the government recruit and train more poll workers to reduce voting lines. And finally, the ethics section. This part is basically directed right at Trump. It says that the president and vice president and any candidates for those positions would need to disclose their last 10 years of tax returns. And as I'm sure you're well aware, Trump still hasn't released his. H.R. 1 would stop members of Congress from using taxpayer money to settle sexual harassment cases. Because yes, that is actually a thing that really happens in the current system. And it would put in place an ethical code for the Supreme Court so that justices are held to some kind of a standard. At the end of the day, H.R. 1 is mostly symbolic. If House Democrats pass it, there's no way it'd pass the Senate or be signed by Trump. Mitch McConnell has already said he's opposed to it, and his reasons are pretty unbelievable. Republicans are trying to spin it as a Democrat power grab, saying that Democrats want to enact these rules so that they can get elected and stay elected. And like, look, if restoring people's voting rights and taking money out of politics gets more Democrats elected, then maybe they're doing something right. That doesn't mean they're cheating the system. Giving Americans their right to vote and making sure that vote matters more than money from some huge corporation, that's objectively a good thing. If it gets more Democrats elected, then that means Democrats' ideals are more aligned with what the American people actually want. And that's basically the goal of H.R. 1 right now, since it won't be passed anytime soon. It's forcing Republicans to take an anti-corruption stance. It's forcing people to see that Republicans want money to stay in politics because it benefits them. Democrats know that H.R. 1 won't pass, but they also know that a majority of Americans support passing anti-corruption legislation. And when Republicans oppose that, it makes them look really bad. But still, this bill has a long way to go simply because it has to be passed in a system that is so severely rigged against it. The corporations that are donating huge amounts of money to politicians right now to get them elected or keep them elected, they're gonna want to make sure this bill doesn't pass. Because even though it might be good for the American people, it won't be good for those huge corporations' financial interests. And so I'm not sure where this will go. Hopefully it can be used to show everyone how Republicans are devoted to supporting corruption and suppressing the vote. And that could lead to more Democrats getting elected in 2020, which could lead to some actual change. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, that's all I had for you today. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can click over here, and if you'd like to subscribe, you can click up here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.